Wonderful. Okay, so thank you all. As Steve mentioned, I am Vaseem the AI Guy, also known as the AI Sherpa. I'll kind of explain what that means a little bit later on. But yes, I pride myself on making AI accessible, actionable to professionals like yourselves, and really understanding how you can use it in your day-to-day lives. It doesn't matter where you are on this journey, as our survey results, which I'll discuss later, this is a bell curve. We've got people who are probably building predictive models in their sleep, and we've got people in the room who are going, ugh, these robots, they're gonna take over the entire planet. I hate this, I don't wanna touch it. And wherever you are on this journey, it's totally okay. And by the end of the hour that we spend together, I encourage it to be a dialogue. Please ask me questions. There's no stupid questions, no silly answers, and we'll move the mic around, as I said, to kind of field those. But before we go and actually get kickstarted on this, I want to show you something with AI. And so I'll have to juggle with my hands. So I'm going to open up ChatGPT, and we're going to try something. And bear with me, because demos can fail. Hello there. I'm sitting in a room of very, very smart and talented people, probably 70 or 80 managing partners or brokers of Billyard Insurance Group, and I'm going to speak to them about generative AI. Can you give them a 30-second pep talk on why this technology or this relationship with AI would be super, super important?
Absolutely, and no worries at all. Let's dive right in. Hey everyone, I know you're all incredibly experienced in the world of insurance, and today we're just adding a new tool to your toolkit. Generative AI isn't just a buzzword. It's going to be your secret weapon in personalizing client experiences, speeding up those routine tasks, and letting you focus on what you do best, building relationships. Think of it as having a really smart assistant in your corner. So let's get excited to explore how this can make your work smoother, smarter, and maybe even a little more fun. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you, ChatGPT. That was very, very helpful. Let's get this party started. So, I'm known as Vaseem the AI Guy, also as the AI Sherpa, and as I said, I've trained thousands of people just like yourselves, from small solopreneurs to mid-markets and large enterprises, on how to apply AI immediately. And what I pride myself on is removing a lot of the technical fluff and really getting down to the human element. What's your relationship with AI? And so our conversation today is really centered around that. So I want you to imagine, next Monday we've got a gentleman by the name of Alex. Is there any Alexes in the room by any chance? I'm so sorry, this is not you. So Alex is, not this one. Alex is essentially sitting at his desk, 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and he's got 3 problems in front of him. One of them, he's got to research a new prospect on cyber liability insurance for a manufacturing or electric vehicle company that he knows nothing about. That's his first problem. Second problem is he's got to create some LinkedIn posts that don't sound like the boring cybersecurity insurance posts like everybody else is doing out there, because insurance is a very, very sexy topic. That's the second problem. And the third problem, as Stephen kind of mentioned, which is a good problem to have, is he wants to grow his brokerage and grow his business. And he's got to write a job description. And you know what? English is not his first language, so that might be a challenge for him. And so he's facing these kinds of 3 problems, and he kind of isolates and goes, okay, for the first particular problem, that's probably going to take me 2 hours of research and going back and forth. I don't know anything about the subject, so I might have to call some of my industry friends. For the second problem, he probably has to call someone on social media, or maybe he'll just procrastinate on that and defer that to a later date, because who likes writing posts? And then the third one, around hiring someone, he probably has to put together some kind of template that he's got sitting in some Microsoft SharePoint drive or a Google Drive, and just kind of copy and paste it and hope for the best, again, because English is not his first language. But Alex is none of the people in this room. Or maybe he is, who knows? But what I know about the people in this room particularly is that 50% of you, over half of the people that I surveyed, are using AI on a daily basis, which is a fantastic thing. For the rest of you, okay, there's some work to be done, because as we heard from Stephen, he's already on the boat with automation and how we're going to be revolutionizing the insurance industry with AI. What I also saw from the results of the survey is a good percentage of you are not feeling very confident about your AI usage, the prompts that you're getting, how to prompt, the outputs, the accuracy, so on and so forth. And so the way that I envision this problem is that you have got a Ferrari that's stuck in first gear. And my goal here today is to really show you all some tips, some techniques, to get in some dialogue, to teach you how to shift gears so that you can safely and responsibly drive this amazing vehicle known as ChatGPT to solve your professional and personal problems, and then eventually you'll be driving on the highway comfortably. So for our time together for this hour, we're essentially going to go through a simple definition of AI that will make sense to you all. I'll share some prompting techniques on how you can set up your prompts or start to think about your relationship with AI and how you're going to navigate it. And I want to make sure that you do it in a safe and responsible way. And of course, as I mentioned, it's meant to be interactive. So if you do have questions along the way, we don't have to save them to the end. I think Jennifer's got a microphone there. Just put your hand up and I'll make sure that we hold your questions at that point. You'll ask your question, a little bit of housekeeping, and then that way I can answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll tell you no. Okay, let's start off with a little bit of a pulse of the room. By a show of hands, who knows at least one of the tools on this slide? Wonderful. Okay, who knows 5 of the tools on this slide? Okay, who knows all of the tools on this slide? Okay, I think I do. All right. So for the people that kept their hands up with the 5, I think I saw one in this room. Let's talk about it. What do you like about the tool that you saw on this slide that you use? And then we'll pass the mic around for that.
Steven, you said you know 5?
So I actually like Grok better than I like ChatGPT. It's cooler, it's more personal, it gives you more real raw answers. Just the dialogue. ChatGPT feels a little political and uniform.
Wonderful. So we got Grok. We got another gentleman over here. Wait for the microphone.
I've used Notebook LM before. You can feed it information, it'll create a podcast. So if you're looking to get up to speed on a topic, you can feed it YouTube videos, you can feed it URLs, you can feed it PDFs. It'll generate a 20-minute podcast. You can listen to it in the car, get you up to speed really quick.
Very cool. That was Notebook LM, folks. It takes data, YouTube videos, links. I'll get into that a little bit later. But it can create a podcast for you. So if you're a busy executive on the drive and you want to learn about a subject, hint, we'll talk about it, that's something that you can use. Wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about generative AI. And so this is there's a lot of technical definitions out there about this subject. The simplest way that I've been able to explain this that a 16-year-old can grasp is the one I'm going to share with you today. So if you can imagine a friend of yours that had almost infinite intelligence on a subject, but then the number of subjects that it had intelligence on was almost infinite as well. My rationale is, would you not want to call a bestie or a friend like that, or text a bestie or a friend like that from time to time for all kinds of things? And so if you keep this kind of mentality in mind as you're navigating your conversations with Grok or Notebook LM or ChatGPT or whatever language models you're comfortable with, it'll really evolve your relationship in terms of the patience that you have and also how you approach those conversations. And so let's take this bestie methodology and apply it as we go forward. So everybody in this room was probably around when Google was around. I'm just doing a cross-sectional analysis, no super young kids. Okay, yeah, so we got Google. Everyone knows about Google. Whereas the differences between Google and, let's say, a language model like ChatGPT is you can almost envision Google being a giant library or a repository of information. You still have to search for the information. You still have to read the articles. You still have to go through the Reddit and the Stack Overflow and all of that kind of stuff to get the information that you need. Whereas ChatGPT, you can almost envision it, or any of these language models, I'm going to pick on ChatGPT because it's the most common, you can almost look at it as that best friend who's read all of those public books or those public resources in the library and wants to have a genuine conversation with you to help you. And so when you start to approach it that way, you're like, okay, let me lean on you for maybe some content creation to write something for me. But you might also be able to lean on it for, hey, let's brainstorm some new ideas on how I can generate business for my brokerage. Or, I put together an amazing RFP, but can you play devil's advocate and chisel the hell out of this thing to make it even better? So again, these are the kinds of ways you can start to think about how you want to explore your generative AI usage. Okay, so let's talk about how it works. Again, from a non-technical perspective, if you can imagine all of these language models, they've been trained on public information. So they're not proprietary information. And this is a very, very important distinction. So what these models have been trained on is still a big question mark. Some companies have publicly released and have provided that information. But OpenAI, Google Gemini, a lot of these tools have been trained on vast amounts of public information. And so what they're doing is essentially taking all that information, and when you speak with them or chat with them or provide information, all that context, they're trying to predict line by line, word for word, exactly what it is that you're looking for in order to respond back to you. And so in that process, we talk about precision. That's the tool. That's funny that you use it. But language models inherently, they work on this principle of prediction, not precision. And so we humans, we love certainty. And so when a language model gets something wrong, we're like, you suck. You can't count the number of R's in the word strawberry. Ha ha ha, ChatGPT sucks. And the reality is because it's based on this philosophy of prediction, not precision, it's going to misfire. And so it's going to hallucinate. It's going to have some bias in the outputs that you get. And so then, going down that line of reasoning, you want to make sure that you are always the human in the loop. Whether you're using a tool like Precision X or whether you're having your own conversations with ChatGPT, verify the accuracy of the sources, the information, put your own human spice on it, and then go out and put it back out. It would be the equivalent of you hiring an intern in your brokerage, and let's say they have a catastrophic error in terms of some compliance. You as the brokerage managing partner, you're still responsible for the downstream impact of your employees. You are also responsible for the downstream impact of the AI outputs. Because the models are getting better. As we saw from the telephony, I don't know how to say that word, example that Steve shared with us, there's some work to be done in terms of like how that model responds and how it navigates those conversations. But the models of a year ago are way worse than the models of today. You can only imagine what the models of tomorrow will look like. So that window will get tightened in terms of that accuracy. Because besties make mistakes too, right? I mean, we all have friends like this who are super, super smart. But what if that person hadn't slept well the night before? Or they got into an argument with someone that they loved, and you go to them for advice, right? They're probably going to be a little bit, biased or a little charged with the response that they give you. So you as the human, you got to be able to discern the output that you're getting and be a little bit patient to be like, you know what? I hear what you're saying. I understand. I'm still going to make the decision or decide how I'm going to play with this information. Very, very important parts of the process. And I love this quote. There's actually a former OpenAI exec. His name is Zach. Both of his parents are surgeons, and I think this is an important principle. And so he says that when it comes to language models, we make actually, we provide no patience to language models compared to the patience that we provide for human beings who do probably the most grievous of things. And so his philosophy was that his parents in the medical industry, they would have a 15% error rate when it came to medical procedures and surgeries. And what does a 15% error rate look like in surgery? It means that they would leave something the size of this inside of a human body after surgery. And that can be quite catastrophic. And yet, we make passes for humans to be able to do that. But when ChatGPT doesn't get our output correct, we get really pissed off and we want to slam our screens. So something to be mindful of. Okay, let's move on to how we actually interact with AI. And so this one's an interesting distinction as well, because you got a lovely, lovely example of two pieces of automation that Stephen had shared earlier. And so automation is essentially giving AI some kind of work to do for you based on very specific instructions. And this table here, and I think there's a tech table over there, they have done a lot of work in terms of the workflows and the logic of all that stuff that you see in the back end that allows when you upload a document for it to say, hey, I don't like that in terms of the kilometers, or I don't think this information is missing, or I don't think that this information is good, can you come back to that? And that's all about automation, really setting up systems and processes where it removes a lot of your manual effort. Very different than what we talk about in terms of the second pillar of AI, what we call augmentation. And that is actually the human relationship that you have with something like ChatGPT. It's where you and AI work together to accomplish things. Stephen, number 2, I'm going to pick on you because you actually have a lovely example that you shared with me once. So you can be fun with this. He would take a picture of like some renovations that he was doing in his home in regards to like how he wanted to lay his home out. And so he took a picture with ChatGPT and he put that in there. And then it gave him suggestions on terms of measurements or layouts and things like that. So that's very different than, let's say, setting up a system that could automate a flow of information. Now it's his relationship and how he uses AI to do something personal, but you can only start to imagine when you start playing and tinkering, you can get a lot more creative in how you use it professionally. And the last one is what we call agentic AI, or AI agents. And this is where AI does some work for you with very, very little human intervention. And that's the realm of the scary stuff where, you watch movies like The Matrix or Terminator, and these robots are making decisions without any human input. And that can be very, very scary, where you're like, oh my God, the robots are going to take over. But as you can see from the simple example here, AI, it really depends on the dimension that you're thinking of. And I'll give you a positive example of agentic AI. So imagine the power were to go out right now in this building, right? There is a power grid that's set up, or a company that's responsible for providing power to this area. Now, as soon as the power goes out, there's going to be an entity or an AI agent out there that's going to make a decision without waiting for a human like myself or yourselves to go, oh my gosh, power is out, we need to reroute here. No, it's going to be within milliseconds rerouting that power or kicking in the backup generators to restore power back to the area. So that's just a simple example of like useful agentic AI. And they get a lot more sophisticated as you go on with time, and I'm sure Stephen will invent something proprietary for Billyard Insurance Group. Because as I said, when we're talking about your relationship with something like ChatGPT or Notebook LM or Grok, it's really about augmentation. And the remainder of our talk is going to be focused on how can you augment better as a managing partner, as a broker, and as a human being. Because Precision X is all about automation. And we got some lovely examples of how that's going to work. I won't touch too much on that. Okay, so proprietary models, let's talk about them. We heard, Gemini in the room. We've heard about Microsoft Copilot. You've heard about ChatGPT. You're probably wondering, what is the best model? And the reality is it depends on what you're doing. Stephen brought up a lovely example that he likes Grok because of the political not bias. It's very open-ended. And that's very, very true. Some people like Claude, which is made by Anthropic, because it's built on the ethical use of AI. So if you wanted to learn how to build a bomb, Claude would not tell you how to do that. Grok might. Right? So again, it depends on how you want to play and where you decide to play. There's a Chinese model out there called DeepSeek, and it's very, very powerful in terms of advanced reasoning. I had a conversation with my videographer, Mikkel, there in regards to game theory, and he's like, oh, is there a model that can really engage me in deep intellectual conversation? Because I'm struggling with ChatGPT. Go use DeepSeek, Mikkel. Because again, it's very, very advanced. They use it for solving like advanced calculus puzzles or things like that. Very, very powerful. Now, when it gets into data security, there's this whole US versus China thing, not the purpose of this room, but you start to think about that, where is the data going? And we'll talk about data privacy later. But really, it doesn't matter which model that you use. You're probably wondering, are these worth paying for? And I'll tell you a personal story. So when I was writing my children's book, ABCs of the Future, I actually used the free version of ChatGPT. I didn't pay for it for the longest time because I was just thoroughly impressed, be like, oh my gosh, I can understand something like a Yottobite or zero gravity and explain it to me like a 5-year-old. Like that was good enough. So if you haven't explored ChatGPT today or any of these language models, it's okay to use the free version to get started and get creative. I just want to let you know. You don't need to go and buy it out right away. Now, if you're on the free version today and you're using it for your business, I'm going to highly encourage you to go download it later on tonight, and go pay and at least sign up for the next 30 days, because even what I showed you with that voice mode feature, that alone is worth the $20 investment. Because all of a sudden, if you're in the car and you're driving and you have like an idea that sparks something, you can literally get on your phone. And yeah, you can listen to music and listen to podcasts, but you could whip up ChatGPT and have a genuine conversation and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, this, and this. I'm very confident in my ideas about this. I'm not so confident in this area. Can you help me out? And I'd be thoroughly surprised at the output that you would get once you start having these conversations. Because the built-in memory of ChatGPT is also phenomenal. So as you're going to see later, I'm going to open up chats and we're going to talk about it. But when you pay for ChatGPT, you get actually this thing called memory, which actually memorizes the conversations that you have between different chats and starts to bring in that collective intelligence. So you don't have to keep putting back in the same inputs or the outputs, that it's able to remember your conversations across the board. And as I said, for $20, the memory is the real investment. Regardless, though, of the tools, the features, free, paid, it's all about these things called prompts. And let's talk about that. You can think of prompting as these instructions. It's the instructions that you give to AI. And the more specific that you are, the better it's going to be for you, right? If you provide a basic prompt like, write me a business plan, sure, you'll get some great output. But if you say, write me a business plan for, a national brokerage that I need to, submit based on these types of contexts, you could do that, and it would be a lot more meaty in terms of your output. But remember, prompting is about prediction. Each one of us in this room could write the exact same prompt, and we will get varying answers. And the reality is because no two prompts are going to get the exact same answer based on this model of prediction, not precision. So, in the spirit of helping you prompt, there's tons of frameworks out there on YouTube, TikTok. There's ones that are a lot more meatier. The one that I like to introduce is called RACEF. And R stands for role, A stands for action, C stands for context, E stands for examples, and F stands for format. And really, role just means out of that vast intelligence that AI has, you narrow down the focus. So you say, hey, can you pretend that you're a marketing manager if you want to write social media content, right? So you assign a role to the AI and say, pretend you are this. And then all of a sudden, the starting point starts from that point, and then it will deliver the knowledge from that starting point. A is like, what do you want the action to be? Very specific. What do you want AI to do? Do you want it to brainstorm for you? Do you want it to write something for you? Do you want it to summarize something for you? Be very specific in the action that you give to AI. C is probably the most important one on this list. It's context. And the way that I describe context is like all the jot notes that you have in your mind, it doesn't have to be perfect English. If English is not your first language, that's totally okay. Just provide whatever context that's unique or your own unique spice that's in the situation that's going to help you with the action, and AI will love that for you. And if you've got examples like what does good look like, or if you want your format to be in a table, or you want like an Excel file, or you want it to be with certain tables, titles, and headings, and so forth, you can try that out with AI, and it will produce that for you. So, as I said, I think Stephen mentioned earlier today, content is king. And I love that philosophy because when it comes to language models, context is queen. And as I mentioned, those jot notes in your mind, doesn't have to be perfect English. As long as you provide those individual nuances, it's going to benefit you in your outputs. Okay, we're actually going to go and do a little bit of a demo using RACEF. So back to that lovely person named Alex and his problem about writing some LinkedIn posts. So we've got essentially a situation here where we're going to help Alex out. So I'm going to switch mics, and this is going to get a little choppy, but that's okay. We'll make it work. So, we're going to use the role as you are a creative marketing strategist, I'll switch, with 15 years of experience writing engaging content for small business owners. And the specific action that we want AI to take is to create 3 LinkedIn posts promoting this lovely topic called cyber liability insurance. And then the context that we provide is, small businesses that have about 2 to 50 employees who often think that cyber insurance is only for large corporations. And then from the example standpoint, we're like, hey, why don't you open with some stats and relatable scenarios? But really at the end of it, I want to see 3 posts with clear call to actions and give me some hashtags, if people even use hashtags these days. So I'm going to quickly zoom out of the Canva presentation, and we're going to walk into ChatGPT. Hello. Okay, and so for the folks who have not been in ChatGPT, you can see when you get into the main screen, it's like, hey, what can I help with, right? And you can literally ask it anything. And so in the bottom, you'll see that ChatGPT also tells you it can make mistakes. It's really telling you that. And then for me, because I've got the paid version, I'm secure, they're basically saying that they're not going to train on my data. So again, if you use the free version, you might be subject to any information that you put in here. It's going to be subject to be training on their models. There are ways to be able to turn that off. So I'm just going to copy and paste that prompt in there and show you kind of what it looks like. And you can see within seconds, it's got post 1, right? It's got the emoji, it's got the hashtags. 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses, but only 14% are prepared to defend themselves. And then you got the second post, the relatable scenario, right? It tells a story about imagining this, opening up your laptop, kind of like Alex on Monday morning, to find your systems locked very, very quickly, right? And then the third post, what is the real value of reputation? It even shows you, because we asked it for it to provide the angles, it shows you the angles that it's going to take. And so we could take it even one step further, right? You can get creative, but what I'm trying to show you with this example is that you can switch the tone of it. So I can say, can you write these in the tone of, does anybody know who Dr. Seuss is? But very, very quickly, a lot slower than the first one. But see, you gotta be patient with AI. But yeah, here we go. These 3 LinkedIn posts written in a Dr. Seuss inspired playful rhyme style. I'm not gonna read all the rhymes, but did you know, did you hear, did you see the news? Small biz gets attacked more often than you choose, right? So anyway, you could do things like this, but I'm sharing this with you in terms of the application. Let's say you had to write a difficult email, and you are very emotionally charged. You might be able to provide the input with that charge, but then you can say, can you write this in a lot more warm or friendly manner, right? So you can play with tones in different kinds of ways. So we'll go to the next example, which is essentially Alex's second problem, right? A recruiter on demand. So he wants to hire a new, a commercial insurance broker on his team. So now in this way, you could ask the role to be an expert talent acquisition specialist. And so the way you come up with the role is you have to think about the action that you want to take. And then from the action that you want to take, think of who would be the best person in the world for this job, right? So if you want to write a compelling job description, you might want to have an expert HR person. So that's kind of the rationale between role and action. And as you can see from the context, Billyard Insurance Group, 3 to 5 years commercial experience. And then, the format is going to be a professional job posting with an opening paragraph, role expectations, a profile, and maybe even some of Billyard Insurance Group's unique advantages. So I'll open up a new chat and just paste that in there. And again, very quickly, within seconds, you can see, obviously we didn't give it a location, but it's giving you a placeholder for it, right? Are you ready to take ownership of a thriving commercial book of business? It's got the opening paragraph. It talks about what you'll do, who you are, why Billyard Insurance Group. I'm assuming from the values that you have, Stephen, a lot of these make sense, but if not, you can always tweak them, but at least it gave you the flow of how you could structure this. And then you can take this output and put your own individual spice on it very, very quickly. You might even be able to take it one step further. Instead of saying, hey, okay, I want you to write this job description, you could say, can you provide me, once the person is hired, a 90-day roadmap to ensure that this person can be successful, right? And iterating off of that piece, here's a structured 90-day roadmap for that new broker, right? Days 1 to 30, you give them some onboarding and training, you provide the book of business review, so on and so forth, right? But just an example of what you can do from one sample to another and kind of iterate your thoughts on top of it. If it isn't perfect, you can decide. But try to write this. I would challenge you to try to write this yourself at the speed and the quality. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. Okay, let's move to the third example around research. And so I was surprised, and I don't think I put on the list, but does anyone in this room know about the tool called Perplexity?
Yes.
Okay, let's grab a mic to one of those people. That wasn't that gentleman, because he's already spoke. Somewhere in this table?
Yeah, we use Perplexity.
Okay, tell us more.
I just find it a little bit more professional and strategic than what I would go to ChatGPT for. So if I'm building out any kind of business plans or I just want something slightly more maybe professional, that's the place I'll take it.
Wonderful. So you had an example too, right?
Yes, so I have used ChatGPT for applying to offer emails to clients. I've done that.
Who else was in Perplexity on this table? Was there anyone else or no?
Yeah, what I remember about it, but I think ChatGPT is doing this now, is that it provided sources.
Yep.
So that was the only thing that was in Perplexity.
Wonderful. Yeah, so the answer was around sources. I love your idea too, in terms of like the deeper reasoning with Perplexity, and the way that I explain it in a simple way again, if ChatGPT and Google had a baby, it would be Perplexity. Because it's going to speak to you like ChatGPT in terms of the query and the nuances and taking all of that context, but it's going to do a far better job than Google in terms of research. And so I'm about to show you an example of why I think that's happening that way, unless there's other suggestions or comments about Perplexity before we move. Okay. Okay, so for this example, as you can see, you're an insurance broker preparing for that sexy meeting about electric vehicles, and you're trying to do some research around having an intelligent conversation with a prospect. So what we can do is just copy this prompt, and we can open up a window or a tab for Perplexity, right? And very similar. Again, they all kind of work like this and say, ask me anything, because they want to promote you to be curious and creative and really go to them for anything. So we'll paste that in there. And the question that I have specifically are what are the key operational risks, regulatory concerns, and challenges around EV component manufacturing. And so to the gentleman's point about sources, and ChatGPT is doing this now, I would still lean on Perplexity, especially the paid version, because the sources are a lot stronger and a lot more credible. ChatGPT still misfires from time to time, unless you would use what's called the deep research function, which I won't go into today. But Perplexity is really, really good for research. As you can see, very quickly it answers you like ChatGPT. It says the electric vehicle component manufacturing industry faces a unique combination of these risks. It breaks down those risks that we asked for in terms of the regulatory concerns, supply chain, so on and so forth. And then what I love about these models as well is Perplexity does this well, is it asks you very specific follow-up questions. You could be like, what insurance coverages are typical for EV battery component makers? And you can just click on that, and you can go in down, the rabbit hole, as they say, in regards to this. But again, very, very powerful in terms of laying that out for you in terms of property insurance or product liability and so forth. Now, where Perplexity takes it to a whole other level, which I love, is the sources piece. And so the gentleman here, you're absolutely right. ChatGPT does provide it. Perplexity provides it in an easy way to find it. So if you just click on this tab here called Sources, you'll see the sources are wonderfully laid out for you, specifically to those websites and where it found that information. So if you wish to go and do that deep dive, you can. And the last thing that I just really love Perplexity, the last one is around the steps that it took and what was the reasoning. How did it arrive at its answer? It looked for standard insurance coverage for EV battery component manufacturers. It looked for typical insurance policies. So if you wish to recreate the steps in your own search methodology for future, you can use Perplexity to kind of teach yourself how to search for things. And again, really, really powerful there. And so if you just wanted to, share this amongst your team, Perplexity also makes it quite useful. Just hop on here, go export to PDF, and this is probably one of my favorite parts, because you open it up, and it lays it out very, very nicely. Perplexity header, but it's got my query, it's got all my answers, right? And then all the sources that it took to find that information, all in one spot, and you can just send this to someone. So in terms of that cross-transfer of information between your brokerages, Perplexity is really handy for sharing that information amongst yourselves. Okay. So that's Perplexity. Let's talk about guardrails, because a good percentage of the group also surveyed said, you're worried. You're like, ugh, where's our data going, right? A good portion of you are worried about the accuracy of the outputs that you're getting. And a lot of you are worried about, oh my gosh, what can we share? What can we not share? These are sort of the questions that came up. And so for me, I want to share some thoughts with you around how you can keep it safe, because you are in a regulated and compliant industry. So let's talk about that. Because the reality is, if I were to do a cross-section of this room, I can probably say a quarter of you is probably sharing some stuff about Billyard Insurance Group that you shouldn't. But we're not going to point fingers or name names, but there was a study done by Microsoft called BYOA, Bring Your Own AI, and this was a common theme that emerged because employees weren't getting the support that they needed from their organizations. Not saying that happens here, but what I mean to say is if you're not empowered to use AI appropriately, people are going to find the least resistance and go play. And sometimes data gets leaked that way. So going forward, try not to do that. Get paid models, tighten up your security, and create almost like a data classification amongst your brokerage to say, hey, this is what we can share, this is what we shouldn't share. Because the first thing is, let's create some privacy, create a wall around it, right? Number one, unless you're working within Precision X, and Stephen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, don't share any client information, policy numbers, personal info, any of that, anything that's piped up, don't put it into ChatGPT, whether you've got a paid model or not. Let's keep that information within Precision X going forward. That's the number one. And if you do need to share that kind of information to do some analyses, anonymize it. Keep it generic. Sanitize your information, right? We want to make sure that you're getting value without risk. The second one, let's make sure all the IP stuff from Billyard Insurance Group stays in the kitchen. Let's not spread that information around, because as I mentioned before, these language models were trained on public information. They don't have access to Billyard Insurance Group stuff that's sitting on their servers. That's all private information, and so you don't want that information to go back into the public sphere, because that can be a little detrimental. So, protect the IP of Billyard Insurance Group, because we want you to use AI wisely. We're not saying, don't use it. We're saying use it wisely and treat it like an intern. You're going to give them the keys and assign them some tasks, but you're not going to hand over the entire filing cabinet to them. And the last one, remember that you are the human in the loop always. AI is like your co-pilot, not to steal Microsoft's language model, but it truly is like an assistant for you. It can do some phenomenal things, but you always have to make sure to verify your outputs, the accuracy, and all of the downstream impacts that AI can have. Because we want you to move fastly, we want you to move swiftly, we don't want you to move carelessly. Okay, let's talk about discernment. So, the beauty of discernment is, how do you know when AI is right or wrong? Kind of hard to tell, right? Because unless you're the subject matter expert in the room, AI can mislead you, because AI is very, very smart. And that can be a little scary for some folks. So this idea around discernment is your human ability to discern thoughtfully and critically the output that AI gives you. And so we'll talk a little bit about how you can practice discernment. And so practicing discernment from a product perspective means check for accuracy. So when, if Perplexity sends you a link and you kind of like feel a little off about it, go click into that link and go check it out, right? In terms of the process or the reasoning steps, look for those things. Like how do you think AI arrived at this answer? And if you have questions about that, I'll show you some tips later, you can always ask. And the last one, the genuine interaction that you had with the language model. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you try to ask it to create formatting and it struggled and it struggled and it struggled? And that's going to be a performance thing. Then maybe as the human in the loop, you handle that. Don't ask it to format it and give you exactly 3-line spacing. Just do that yourself. There are some things that it can do really, really well. There are some things that it's going to struggle with. But you as the human must decide where AI is going to play. So always use discernment. But discernment also requires you to be a very smart person in the room. And so I get this conversation a lot where it's like, are AIs going to replace humans? And the idea is that in some way, yes. In a lot of ways, no. Because the ability for you to discern requires you to become a subject matter expert. And that's always going to be valuable, regardless of where machines play in the equation. Because if you can't discern the output of it and you just trust it, and it happens to be wrong, then you're liable for that. But if you are a smart, intelligent, and capable individual, and you got output from AI, but then you put your own individual spice on it, and then released it to the market, you have a lot more confidence in what you deliver. So just something to think about. And so what you can do, as I said, you can actually ask AI and build some of this into your prompts. If accuracy is something that concerns you, you can go back to AI and say, hey, clearly separate what you know with high confidence with what you know from low confidence, and show me, Show me the things that I need to get some external input. And you can throw these prompts into your prompts as you write them. So there are ways that you can get around the verification to ask AI to show you its steps or how it arrived at its information, just like any human would when you would ask them, like an employee of yours, like, how trusted is this source, or how trusting is this information that you came to when they deliver something to you? It's the same thing with AI. You can go back and ask. Because ultimately, you are still responsible for the outputs, okay? I want to kind of burn this into your brain. I know I said this a lot, but this idea around having an attestation policy to say, hey, we used AI for this, this, and this. We made sure that humans checked it, validated it, and then we partnered with AI to do things. That part of the conversation is very, very important. And I know, Stephen, we kind of touched on that as part of your talk, and maybe we can talk later about how to deliver that back out to the market. But it is an important conversation that we're seeing in the industry in terms of the practice, because the more transparent you are about your use of AI through the process, the more better it's going to look for you in the public eye, because we're reaching a state where it's going to become commonplace. So as part of your practices for your individual brokerages, just make that disclosure however you decide to use AI and in whatever capacity. I encourage you to do that. But again, always keep this thing called the human in the loop, okay? Don't completely trust AI's output and just copy and paste it with all the emojis. People are going to know that you're writing it with AI. And that's okay for now. As I said, maybe English is not your first language and you struggle with that, but there are certain tells. And, just don't copy and paste. Try to put your own spice in it. Because I want you to get good, truly. That's why I'm here. I want you to accelerate in the use of AI and just get better and better with your relationship with AI. It's why I do what I do. I just want to make sure that people use AI responsibly and safely so you can have a larger impact on your personal lives and your professional lives. So let's talk about where this comes from with Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. And so we get a lot of conversation around AI is going to take all of our jobs. And we can't do anything. And his fundamental belief is that, you know what, robots are not going to take your jobs in the immediate future, but the people who partner with robots most definitely will. So his advice, and my advice to you all in this room, is start activating using AI as soon as possible, wherever you're starting from. Whether it's with Precision X in the platform, embrace it, provide the feedback up to the leadership team and say, hey, this is working, this is not working. Really, really get on that journey. Or as I mentioned a couple of slides ago, go home and get a paid version of whatever language model you like and go start having conversations with AI and getting like the most recent models. So I've told you a little bit about why Perplexity is my favorite, but again, research is a fantastic use of Perplexity. Another one is if you need to research new prospects, new industries or new businesses in your local area. Perplexity is really, really handy for doing that kind of work. Midjourney. Does anybody know about this app? No? Okay. All the images that I made on this deck were from Midjourney. Really, really high quality. So if you need to make, sort of marketing materials and things like that, Midjourney is phenomenal. And because nobody put their hand up, I'm actually going to just quickly show you what it looks like. Stephen, we're good for time? Okay. So really, really quickly, I'll just open up another window, and I can do this with one hand now. But look at the quality of the images that you see here. Right? These are videos right now because now Midjourney added a video feature. But if I were to just scroll down a little bit, the quality is really, really good. Right? And what I love about the Midjourney community is if I were to just click on this, you can see that there's the prompt right there on the top right-hand corner, and I could just click that prompt, and then I can just create that, right? And a few seconds later, see, I was trying to make some pizza. I love pizza. But as you can see, if you scroll down, remember this guy? AI the co-pilot? You are the expert pilot. So I made this in Midjourney. So very, very powerful for image creation, and I highly encourage you to check it out. These are some of my favorite tools that I've vetted, and I don't get any commission off it, but I'm letting you know that these are really, really good for what they are built for. So,
can you give examples?
Yeah. I mean, I built the house. What do you want? What do you want, Steve? Yeah, no, let's go. Okay, let's do it. Yeah. Give me something.
Somebody throw a suggestion out.
Yeah. Let's just do what's that old school game? Person, place, thing. Okay.
Elephant.
Oh my gosh. Elephant. Yeah. Where's the elephant?
Niagara Falls.
I was going to say Welland.
In Welland? Okay. Let's try Niagara Falls. A little bit more broad, right? Yeah. Yeah. I need to put this down. Okay. What is the elephant doing?
Playing tennis.
Where? All right. Okay. I submitted it, and I'm going to move on. Okay. So I'll come back to it. So I don't want to wait for it to load, but yeah. You'll see it doesn't take too long, but I want to get through some of the other content of it. So Notebook LM, the reason I want to talk about this one is really, really neat and it's very underutilized. Who said Notebook LM in this room? Okay, we got two over here. Can we bring the mic over there? I want to have this conversation about Notebook LM because it is a really, really powerful tool and I can share my thoughts on it. I'd love to see how you're using it today.
So I wanted to learn more on corporate tax structures. So I grabbed 3 RPC PDF files that were really boring.
Yep.
Drop them in there, learn pretty much everything I could possibly learn in 15 minutes.
Wow.
And could pretty much explain it to anybody word for word as to the main bullet points of those really boring PDFs. It was awesome. So I use it all the time now.
Very cool. So what I'm hearing from you is Notebook LM can take boring, like tax documents or legal documents or compliance documents that have like fine print and just legalese in them and explain it to you in a simple way. Cool.
We exported all of the Google reviews for Welland into a Google Sheet, fed it to Notebook LM, and they gave us a 20-minute podcast about all the reviews. It said, there were a lot of reviews for this one CSR. You're doing a great job. We noticed a lot of people were complaining about people not answering the phone. We took probably 1,300 reviews and got a 20-minute podcast out of it, and notes, and summaries, everything, and it took no time.
Amazing. Two great examples and two distinct examples. And I'm about to pull up Notebook LM before I show the Midjourney picture and show you how kind of it works and how I would use it from a sales perspective. But go ahead, I think there's more.
I was going to say you can also do when you're trying to learn the same files, and you can do the Quizlet kind of formats for trying to blank.
That's okay. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, we can come back. Okay, let's go check on the elephant. Oh, what the heck? All right. Well, it's trying, right? But elephant, Niagara Falls, right? Decent. Oh, okay. That's all right. Well, who's he playing with? No, right? But it always, that one's actually a good one, right? Because it actually, because you can zoom in and you can see it's holding it with its trunk, right? It's got 4 feet. I can't count the number of toenails. I don't know. But anyway, these are the kinds of things that you look for with AI. But again, another illustration of a ball and tennis, but pretty decent for an elephant playing tennis in Niagara Falls, right? That's all we gave it. So Midjourney can do a lot, but again, I think the best way to kind of explore Midjourney is to tweak and tinker and prompt. It comes down to how you give those instructions. But again, as you can see from the quality, really, really high quality for a picture like that, right? Any other examples, Steven? You want to give a serious one?
I like that one.
Yep. All right, cool. Okay, let's go into Notebook LM now. I'll show you kind of a test drive of that tool and why I think it's really, really powerful for sales. So you've got these little notebooks that kind of like look like this. I'll open up a new notebook and really, even if I just pause on this screen, what I love about Notebook LM is, first of all, it takes PDF, it takes audio files, it can link to your Google Drive, it can link to YouTube videos if you want to just paste raw text. So what I'm saying is it can take a lot of different content in a lot of different forms all in one spot. That's the first thing. And the second thing is if you've just got websites, you can just paste a whole bunch of URLs. So let's say we wanted to, let's just put electrical vehicles and insurance, right? Such a great subject. Okay, so I'll just grab a whole bunch of links around, take charge with Aviva. I think I heard this name earlier. But we could just copy this link and throw this into Notebook LM, right? And then it'll insert the link very, very quickly. And so if I were to click this very quickly, as you saw, it summarized whatever the information that was on that page. I didn't even look at the website, but it summarized it very, very quickly. But if I start adding sources, I think, yes, there we go. There's a number down here that says 300. We gave it one website, but you could throw potentially 200 other websites into here. All the links that you have buried in all of the, I'm sure everybody has 300 tabs open in one of their Google Chrome areas, right? You could take and copy all those tabs and put them as links in here. And then, as the gentleman said over there, you could create a podcast around all of the information that you've just kept unopened in the background that you want to learn more about. You could create flashcards. If you want to, let's say you're studying for, I don't know if there's like a brokerage license or any education that you have to take for that, but let's say you have to get some certification and take a course. You could upload the PDF of those documents or the slide decks and all the course curriculum that you have, add them as all the sources in here, and then you can create flashcards and help yourself study using Notebook LM. So that's another feature. Again, another use case of how you can apply it. For sales, how I would use it is if you got, let's say, content about the prospect that you want to meet, or company information from company websites. You could upload all of that source of information into Notebook LM, and then inside here, have a conversation with Notebook LM and say, what are the best ways that I can, relate to this prospect based on myself, and really use it to start thinking about how you evolve your business and bring in more business, not only locally, but municipally and even larger scales. So Notebook LM, really, really hidden gem, a lot you can do with it. Okay, so that's Notebook LM. Let me grab my little click. Okay. The second last tool that I'm going to share with you, this one's called HeyGen. Anybody in the room has heard of this one? Okay, I'll show you an example later. But essentially, it allows you to make AI avatars. So, let's say you're a little camera shy, and you need to get studio production time, and makeup and getting your outfit done takes a while, and you've got to keep getting prepared to go and shoot videos. What you can actually work with is a tool called HeyGen, and have yourself be modeled against AI, and essentially create all kinds of AI avatars about yourself. And so if you need to do like social media videos or training videos or onboarding videos, you can have a lot of application using HeyGen and creating an AI avatar for someone like yourself. And I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. And the last tool that I'll share with you that's my favorite, so if you've been playing with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and all these tools, and you've been exhausted, you're like, I don't really like the output, I can only get so far, then I highly, highly recommend you check out this tool called Agentive. And it borders between what I call agentic AI and augmentation when it comes to AI. And I'll show you an example of how Agentive works, but essentially, imagine you had the subject matter expertise of like a world-class project manager, or a world-class financial analyst, or a world-class sales coach, whatever the case may be. You could actually plug into an agentive agent, and instead of working with, let's say, ChatGPT and having a conversation and having to explain the prompts and the context and all of that, these agents are built with that methodology of a world-class salesperson and can engage in genuine dialogue and will guide the conversation along with you based on your own context. And so Agentive is really, really powerful. And so I'll show you an example of how Agentive has used HeyGen to kind of talk about why it's beneficial for you all. And then we'll wrap up. So this is on their website. I'm going to see if this works with the audio. Oh, lovely.
Hey there, I'm Haley. I'm here to help you learn about Agentive. What questions can I answer for you today?
Hi, Haley. I'm sitting with a lovely group of Billyard Insurance Group managing partners and executives. And can you give us maybe an overview of Agentive and why it might be a little bit more appropriate for them than ChatGPT?
Oh, a Billiard Insurance Group meeting. Sounds intriguing. Here's the scoop on Agentive. Unlike ChatGPT, Agentive offers over 100 specialized AI agents tailored to specific business tasks with deep domain expertise. They cater especially well to regulated industries like yours. Curious to know more about a specific feature?
Yeah, maybe you can give a shout out to 3 agents that would be appropriate for a group like this. They handle everything from marketing to sales and project management and research.
You got it. For your esteemed group, I'd definitely shout out our AI agents like Martina, the marketing strategist, who can elevate your marketing strategies. Then there's our sales specialist, who's all about optimizing your sales process. And for research and project management, there's the project coordinator, streamlining every task. How does that sound for starters?
Thank you, Haley. We're good. But that's just an example of how you can use HeyGen on your website, the AI avatars, and the tool Agentive and what it can do for you. Okay. Let's keep flowing. Okay, we'll recap towards the end. So we talked a little bit about how you can embrace AI safely. Again, put some validation and checks into it. Never share proprietary information unless you're within the Precision X platform. That's number 1. Treat AI as your brainstorming partner, your bestie. Remember, you are the pilot in control of the situation. You've got to be the human in the loop always. And then you can use prompting frameworks like RACEF if you're not getting the best out of your prompts. And remember that when it comes to prompting, context is queen. All the jot notes in your mind. If English is not your first language, totally okay. Just give it what you can think of in however coherent thought that you can provide. Language models love that and will work magic from the dust that you give them. And let's start talking about using AI for driving real impact in your brokerages. Stephen has some goals around recruitment, around growing the business and leveraging technology. I encourage you all to embrace it. And one of the ways that you can embrace it is, at the very least, get on the free models or take the step up for 30 days and try to pick up the paid ones and start unlocking some fantastic features. So I'll leave you with a story. It's something that I actually watched last night. So it reminded me of Winston Churchill. And so there's a story of Winston Churchill about maybe 70, 80 years ago during World War II. And if some of you know this, you can chuckle along. But he's sitting in a bathtub. And his assistant is sitting outside of his room transcribing for him. And there's this philosophy out there that true innovation comes from 3 places: the bed, before you fall asleep, the bus, when you're traveling, or in the bath, when you're cleaning yourself off. So Winston Churchill happened to be in the bath in this particular situation. And he's talking to his assistant outside the room, and he's going, "We need to write a speech." And so she's like, "Oh, distinguished ladies and gentlemen." He's like, "They're not distinguished." And she's like, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is our auspicious honor." And he's like, "Get to the damn point." And so I can only imagine what Winston Churchill must have been thinking at the time. Because technologically today, we have the ability to talk to an assistant like that, to be able to take our intent, our processes, our thoughts, our nuances, and be able to write a speech within 30 seconds. And so now that power exists in each one of your hands, and even in the hands of, let's say, a college student that's sitting in the developing world. And I just think that's really, really beautiful. So imagine the world that we will build with technologies like this if we also work on ourselves as good humans. So I'll leave that sentiment with you. My name is Vaseem the AI Guy. There's lots of ways you can find me on most of the socials, and I really appreciate you being here and being a part of this dialogue about AI. Thank you.